today I'm going to be showing you how I made a full song on Ableton Live Lite. Ableton Live Lite is a super limited version of Ableton that comes with MIDI keyboards and other things like that. So I got mine within Akai MPK Mini. It comes with a free license, and also there's an 8-track limitation, so you're only able to record with 8 tracks. So the way that I get around these limitations is I use a lot of drum racks, which I'll show you right now. I'll bounce to new projects and then finish the songs in other projects and basically have it cut into parts. So the first project will be this Ableton project here, which is for the instrumental of the song. We're starting at 160 BPM. I'm starting here with a kick drum. This is the drum rack here. This is going to be your best friend when it comes to using Ableton Live Lite. The drum rack, you can put anything on these racks here. The kick, the clap, the hi-hat, the ride, snare. I do not know what this is, but this is here. This is the kick, right? So you can add individual effects to each component of your drum rack instead of having to put a kick in a new track and wasting track space, because we only have 8 tracks, right? You can put all of your drum hits into this drum rack and then individually put an effect on the rack. For the kick, I put a Camel Crusher on there. I just set it to Annihilate. So this is what it sounds like without the Camel Crusher. Quiet kick. And then with the Camel Crusher, it gives it more of this techno feel. If I click on this hi-hat right here, you can put a limiter or something individually, so then the clap won't have it, but if you click on the hi-hat, it'll have the limiter on. And then overall here, outside of the rack, I have the effects that go on all the drums. Here we have a compressor that goes on the drums, just kind of like taming the peaks. And then I have a EQ here, cutting out the lows so that it makes room for the 808 that we'll add later. And then the Cymatics Diablo. This is like one of the best free plugins, guys. So this is actually like a saturation plugin. It's free. And it's really good for like getting your drums to hit hard and getting your 808s to hit hard. Basically, it has like a punch knob for like the transients, and then the clipping knob right here for like saturation. So here I'm using pretty hard saturation on all the drums. So you can hear like there's some pretty prominent saturation on the hi-hats and kicks. Okay, so there we're done for the intro drums. And then here we have the main drums that come in during the chorus and the verse. And then that I'm using a awesome free plugin as well. It's called Steven Slate Drums 5. So this is like a cool little drum sampler plugin that gives you like these pretty realistic drum sounds that you can get for free. So free plugins are going to be your best friend when it comes to Ableton Live Lite, because there's only this amount of effects that you can use. So the plugins that you might be missing from here, you could download for free and support awesome creators. Here we have the hi-hat roll after that for texture. So when it comes in, it sounds like this. Those little sounds that come here and there are just to give it more of a feeling and more movement when it comes to the drums, just to make it less boring. You don't want it to be just drums by themselves, you know. And then here we have a drum fill that comes in at the intro. This is actually a drum solo that I got from a YouTuber. I don't remember his name, but this was a crazy solo that I had to manipulate with these warp markers. So the BPM is 160, right? I had to manipulate it to go to each of these beats right here and make it fall onto tempo. And then here, It's not entirely on tempo, but it is fixed up a little bit. The reason I wanted to make it not entirely on tempo is to give it more of a human-like feel. Sometimes you don't want your drums to be hitting exactly on point because then like it kind of sounds robotic. Here's the fill with all the other drums. And then it transitions into the main drum loop. So that's it for the drums right there. That's everything that kind of like, oh wait, and then the 808, I'm sorry. So the 808 also, so I got like a 808 sample. It's hitting pretty hard. You can hear it through like laptop speakers or phone speakers. That's really important when you're mixing your 808. This is also where the Cymatics Diablo plugin comes in. This will actually get your 808 sounding really nice and punching through the speakers, because if you're not putting like any type of saturation or clipping on your 808, it's not gonna be audible. People listening through like their phones or their laptops are not really gonna be able to hear that. So this is what it sounds like without the Diablo plugin. It's hitting, but it's not hitting as hard as if I were to turn on the plugin. I have a compressor, EQ, just taking out the highs actually, so that, you know, we're only hearing the bass frequencies. And then we have a tuners to make sure that the 808 is in tune. So then here's what it sounds like together. So those are the drums together. Take these out here. And now we're going to start with the main melody. So the main melody for my song Talk Talk is a synth that kind of just bounces around everywhere. So this is a plugin that I used, which is free, and it's also really good with sounds and presets. It sounds really cool. Is the Surge XT. It's a free plugin that you can get, and has all of these presets that you can use. So this preset is called Musical Pulses, and that's what I was using for the main melody. And then, of course, we have the EQ, high pass filter right here. High pass filters are very important, especially when you're making a beat, because you want everything to be high passed except for the kicks and the bass, because you want the kicks and the bass to stand out, especially if you're making hip hop like what I'm doing. You want the bass to be really loud and hitting hard. So I have erosion on here just to add like a little, I guess, like more texture, and then wider to give it a stereo spacing effect. So here's what it sounds like without the wider. And then here's what it sounds like with the wider. It just kind of gives it that 3D effect and makes it sound like it's rotating from left to right, you know? So here is the main melody with all the drums together. And then here we have the second melody, which is this bass that I tuned up. So it sounds kind of alien-like. And then again, we're putting the high pass filter just because it's not an 808 or a kick. We want to make room for that. And then you turn on this. So usually with a beat, you want like a melody and then a second melody that like counteracts your first one. And then you want like a pad or something to like make it sound really full. So then here we have the pad. Kind of rhythmic. And it also gives it that ambience that we need. So here's what the pad sounds like with everything else. All All right, so that's it for the beat. So then when you're done with the beat, what you're going to want to do is export the audio, and then you make sure that all the settings are right, and then you export it. I've already exported this, so I won't do it again. But once you export it, you open a new file, and then this will be the part where we add the effects and stuff. So basically you want 3 files, right? So the first file is going to be your beat file where you make the beat, and then the second file is going to be where you add like all the effects and sounds to the beat. And then the third project that you're going to make is going to be your vocals, you rapping, your singing, whatever. So this is the second part of the beat, right? So I have like the first beat here, and then I chopped it up and made it sound cool. Basically what I did is, this is the outro, right? I wanted to give the second part of Talk Talk like a more relaxing feel. So that's what the second part sounds like. Basically what I did to make the second part, I got this first part. So you copy that first part, right? This is a cool trick that I learned the other day. And then you paste it. And then what you want to do is you double click on the audio file, and then you go down here, and then it gives you like the option to warp it, right? So you want to warp it, and then you want to make it slower, so you like time it ×2. This is going to make it longer. So basically it slows the audio down, right? It gives it kind of like a halftime effect. So that's what I did, is that I half-timed it, and then I brought it down to here, and I added this movement filter. So the movement filter is going to add this kind of underwater type of noise, and it just gives it more a cool, I guess, psychedelic kind of feel. So if you take off the movement, it's going to sound like this. So that's like how it sounds regular. And then when you add the movement filter, like, see how different it gives the feeling to the song. So I added that as the outro, and then added this piano from Labs. So this is also a really cool free plugin. This is called Spitfire Audio Labs, and then it's basically a bunch of free sounds that you can get really high quality. So this one is like an electric piano. So just something kind of like solemn, contemplative, and kind of like blends in with all the other sounds like this. There's a guitar that my friend played. So yeah, there was supposed to be a guitar here. Well, there is a guitar here, but it's not in the file. So then we export that, and then now we're going to go on to the vocal part. So this is the beat. We have the beat here with the cool little outro. And then first we have the chorus, right? So I recorded the first part of the chorus. Talk that talk, walk that walk, talk that, but it sound like this, but it sound like this. So basically for the chorus, I had auto-tune. This is a cheaper plug-in version of the more full-scale auto-tune. So that's for the chorus, and then I have the Ableton stock compressor, the EQ, just getting rid of those frequencies, raising up the highs. Also, when you're raising up the highs a lot, like I did with these vocals here, you want a de-esser. So basically a de-esser is going to help you get rid of that sound. Like when you're turning the highs up, the S's are really prominent. The sounds are like really bad. So you can see that it's like attenuating the S's. And then I have a second compressor. 2 compressors are always good for like rap vocals. You want that radio ready forward vocal style. And then the chorus, I have this chorus plugin just to make all the vocals sound wider. And then for the second part of the chorus, These are the dubbing vocals, or like the vocals that go under the chorus just to make it sound louder. With the chorus, you want it to be louder than the actual verse. So these are just backing vocals, and this is what it sounds like with the beat. And then I also have the refrain in the hook that I manipulated to sound kind of like weird and high pitched. So that's also auto-tune. Got some denoiser. There was a lot of noise when I recorded that because I had the fan on. So this denoiser plugin is really taking out that extra noise. And then I have a compressor, the EQ, just getting rid of all those bad frequencies. This MJUC Junior compressor plugin. This is really good for free compressor as well, guys. So I highly recommend this one as well. And then a saturator just to bring it more forward in the mix. So this is how it sounds like within the context of the whole song. So this is like my favorite part of the song, basically the rap vocals. So this is what they sound like by themselves.
I've been trying to figure out just what I'm looking for. I guess it's me, I bet that's what I'm looking for. Never felt at home, I went and kicked down all the doors. I can't believe I made it up to 24.
Compressor, the EQ, getting rid of all the frequencies that we don't need. And then the de-esser, and then the extra compressor that we have on there. The hook right here, the extra vocals, the refrain here after the hook, and then my verse. And then over here, we have the vocals for the outro.
I can do it all, I can do it all, I can do it all, just tell me. I can do it all, I can do it all, I can do it all, I can do it all.
And then basically these are just the same settings as the verse, compressor, REQ, RDSer. I was already running out of space, so usually I merge a lot of different audios together. So like I'll go over here and record a new take, and then go over here and record a new take. So that's also a way that you can get away with limited track amounts. So like I'll record a verse here and then record like the outro here and kind of just have like the same settings, you know. Yeah, guys, this is how I made Talk Talk. Yeah, this is like what the whole song sounds like.